Warning, spoilers for both the anime and the manga ahead. My Hero Academia is good. It's really good. There's an entire laundry list of everything it does well. The visuals, the animation, character interactions, character development, the world building, the great fights, all these interesting powers that on paper seem silly and kind of useless. Like shooting tape out of your arms, or growing sticky ball things out of your scalp, or even being a frog. Yes, seriously, being a frog. But they turn out to be surprisingly effective and even cool. Well, except for Mineta. Mineta may be amusing and even occasionally likable, but he will never be cool. Ever. That being said, if we take a step back and give My Hero Academia a good hard look, don't we end up asking, haven't we seen all this before? After all, this is the story about a boy who is spurned by society for circumstances beyond his control, until one day he is noticed by the man who is widely acknowledged to be the strongest, the very best at what he does. This man sees in this boy the potential to take up his mantle and carry the burning flame of his ideals into the future. Inspired by his mentor's faith in him, this boy takes the first few shaky but completely determined steps on his journey to irrevocably changing the world. This boy's name is Tomura Shigaraki. Yeah, that one. The eternal facepalm dude. The look at me, I can't be anything but the bad guy character. Bet you weren't expecting that, were you? But then, that's one of the things that's surprisingly effective about My Hero Academia. It doesn't depart from the shonen formula, it doesn't deconstruct or question or satirize. But it has a bone-deep, not just understanding, but belief that the shonen genre may have a standard formula, but it's a formula that is not yet exhausted, that it's still a veritable mine of narrative potential. Take Tomura Shigaraki for instance. He's the villain, but just like Deku, he's also making the journey of a shonen protagonist. He's also living out the template of the shonen dream. Now, we won't pretend that this is the most revolutionary idea that somehow makes Shigaraki the most deep and well-developed villain in the whole history of the genre. We also won't pretend that this somehow makes My Hero Academia a deep philosophical work that calls into question the entire concept of what a hero is. This is Shonen Jump, my friends, not Watchmen. All of that being said, however, setting up Shigaraki as a villain in the making opens up a lot of possibilities for him as a character, as well as for the overarching narrative of My Hero Academia. Manga narratives, and especially long-running manga narratives, tend to follow a particular structure because they have to take into account factors such as the serialized nature of their releases, release schedules, fan reactions, and editorial inputs. In order to juggle all these considerations, there are two main tools usually employed. The first is setting a very distant, long-term goal for the protagonist to achieve. For example, becoming Hokage, finding the One Piece, becoming the strongest in the universe, assembling all the Shikan shards, etc., etc. The more distant it is, the higher the ceiling, the farther the goal, the better. This serves more than one purpose. First, it gives the narrative sufficient justification for its length. Second, it helps to keep the narrative on track and unified no matter how many different and even divergent things happen along the way. And last but not least, it ties into the main themes of the genre, of perseverance and hard work, of overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles, of climbing inch by inch out from the bottom of the barrel to firmly planting your foot at the top of the mountain and proclaiming to the world, yes, finally, I am a man. Now, if the ultimate goals of shonen protagonists are often very distant, there has to be another narrative tool that shapes the more short-term narrative arcs. This second tool doesn't change in purpose, but it does vary in form from manga to manga, depending upon the ultimate long-term goal. The most common one is the most basic, and in many cases, the most indispensable: battles. Let's take Dragon Ball Z as an example, arguably the most recognizable and one of the most influential shonen manga ever written. Goku, being Goku, has a very simple goal: become really strong and fight really strong enemies. That's it. Saving the world is a nice bonus, but let's get real. Goku would be fighting even if the world wasn't in danger. As simple as Goku's goal is, there's practically no ceiling on it. Potentially, Akira Toriyama could go on writing Dragon Ball until our sun implodes, as long as he can continually show Goku progressing toward that goal. So how does he show it? By giving Goku progressively stronger enemies to fight. It's not an accident that Dragon Ball's story arcs are named after the villains, such as the Frieza Saga or the Cell Saga. It's also not an accident that once a villain is defeated, he's either completely killed off, or if he's popular with the fans, he's repurposed to become one of Goku's allies. Those are the only options because he can no longer viably serve in his former role as an obstacle and a gauge of how much stronger Goku can become. If we look at My Hero Academia, we can see the same narrative structures at work. Deku has a distant, long-term goal which seems impossibly far away: to become the greatest hero. Granted, this is still a pretty simple, straightforward goal, but it has more nuance than simply becoming the strongest. Unlike Goku, Deku's goal isn't just to defeat his opponents. That is the means, not the end. His real goal is to save other people, to give them hope and to inspire them. The name of his quirk, One for All, encapsulates this pretty well. So, how does My Hero Academia show Deku's progression towards his goal? By showing how he's able to inspire other people, to change their lives through his words and ideologies, but also by laying himself on the line and pushing himself to be the best, because the people who need heroes deserve the best. That's the narrative logic behind Deku not winning his fight against Todoroki in the school tournament arc. He didn't have to win that fight. What he really had to do was help Todoroki come to terms with himself and bring out the best in him. In terms of his long-term goal, which is becoming the greatest hero, the end result of that fight was a plus for Deku because it showed him progressing toward that goal. Most of Deku's interactions with the other characters have this element embedded in them, and that also includes his only one-on-one, up-close and personal interaction with Shigaraki, at least so far. Shigaraki, frustrated and confused as to why people find Hero Killer Stain more compelling and his ideology more attractive, seeks out Deku to have a little chat. Their interaction isn't what anyone would call friendly, but Shigaraki walks away from it with a clearer understanding of what Stain stood for, and more importantly, what he himself wants to stand for and how to go about it. Now, Deku's being able to move and inspire people doesn't seem like a particularly good thing to be at work in this situation, but as has already been stated, Shigaraki is on a journey of his own. From the very beginning, it's pretty obvious that while his quirk is powerful, his approach to villainy is lacking in experience, execution, and maturity. His own allies mention this several times, as well as his mentor. But gradually, it's possible to see a change in the way that Shigaraki operates, a lessening of the tantrums and childishness, and an increase in effectiveness. This improvement is probably most notable in the recently concluded manga arc with Overhaul and the Yakuza. At the beginning of this arc, Overhaul is by far the better villain. He's more cool and collected, his plans are all set, he is in charge and he knows what he's doing. Even his quirk seems to be a superior version of Shigaraki's. While Shigaraki can only disintegrate what he touches, Overhaul can both deconstruct and reconstruct matter. He offers Shigaraki the chance to work with them because they can help each other out, but for all appearances, he is the one more in control. But by the end of the arc, the tables clearly have turned. Overhaul is completely beaten and his plans have fallen apart. And Himiko Toga and Twice's treachery had no small hand in that, as was planned by Shigaraki. Shigaraki does not only manage to neutralize a rival whom he hates, he does so with minimal risk to himself and his own people, since it's the heroes who do all the heavy lifting. Oh, and did I forget to mention that Shigaraki and the rest of the Villain League managed to steal Overhaul's super secret weapon that could destabilize their entire quirk-based society? So, all the while that Deku is improving himself, Shigaraki is keeping pace. In terms of how this affects the overall narrative of My Hero Academia, well, its impact is pretty significant. It's one thing to have an ultimate evil villain. It's another thing to have a villain who we see growing into that role at the same time that our hero is growing into his. This means that not only will Shigaraki never be obsolete, it also gives the rivalry between him and Deku this huge, practically limitless potential. Of course, this makes for exciting prospects in terms of the battles and potentially any fireworks we're going to see, but it's also exciting in how it expands the standard shonen formula. It shows that this story of growth and struggle, of reaching for your dreams in the face of terrible odds, is so elemental, so powerful, anyone and everyone can live it out, even the bad guys. Ultimately, My Hero Academia is that rare work that is fully aware of all the cliches and limitations of its genre, and it tweaks and plays with them, not as a critique, but as a homage. My Hero Academia is a love letter to the shonen manga, a genuine tribute that may occasionally question, but never cynically or ironically. This is a manga that is in love with its own genre, and it shows that it has every right to be. Liked our video? Give us a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from us, click subscribe. And if there's any topic you'd like us to cover, leave your comment below.